And you see it's very smooth. Because it is also at an angle, you have to take that into account when you make the hearts. We're also going to do the band in color. Little pops of color I find make the picture. They make a nice picture better in my opinion. Here we got that. Here we go. And now for the feathers. Well, let's make the big feather here black. I like to do the select area tool so that I don't accidentally get ink on parts I don't want to ink. That's a little too solid, so I'm going to make the feathers line art a level 4. There we go. This way the feather looks a bit lighter. And don't worry about if you get these little things here, because when I do... Anyways, first I'm going to finish making the feather. There we go. And don't worry about like if you get this little effect here, because it's very normal. It's a trick I learned. I take the eraser and I just simply erase the little ends. And well, the ends are not smooth anymore, but don't worry about that either, because at that too I have a technique. To smooth out the little edges, I do a little pop, 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 pop. And there you go, that's the first feather. And now we do the line. As you noticed also, my style is very cartoonish. I don't like the way I made that line. Slow and steady. There, that's perfect. Well, as you noticed, as I was saying, my style is very cartoonish. That's because, well, that is my style. I like to draw cartoon style. I think cartoon style is really neat. And I grew up with it. I was literally 4 years old when I began drawing. And I haven't stopped since. I learned to draw from watching Mickey Mouse in the animated shorts back when VHS was still a thing. I wonder if anybody still uses VHS. I kind of think they do. I know that my parents still have a video cassette player. They even still have a DVD player. I mean, some people don't even have those anymore. Though, from the way streaming prices are going, if people were to switch to that, I wouldn't blame them. And because I just realized I did a little goof here, I accidentally had my mic on mute. So to recap what we're planning on doing today, we are doing a semi-black and white piece, which hence the name implies semi-black and white means that it's going to be black and white for the most part, this picture, except with splashes of color. In this case, those splashes of color are going to be red and pinks because this is a Valentine's Day themed picture. Yeah, that's okay that we made that little mistake there because the hat's going to be black anyway. And so it's perfectly fine. We don't have to feel bad about things like that. The other thing is that I'm also going to be talking about myself as I draw, as you noticed, I should say. And for making perfect circles, I like to use the select or ellipse tool because it just comes out neater and cleaner. Sometimes I like to draw by hand, but in this case, because the picture is also supposed to be special, I like to do that. And I do stroke select, as you noticed. Anyways, as I was saying, forgive me if I also sound a bit off or you hear me sneeze or sniffle because my son gave me his cold. Yeah, that's the thing when kids get sick. There's always that 50-50 chance they're going to share their sickness with you and you're going to catch it. But that's okay, small price to pay. I love my son very dearly and I don't hold it against him. I know that if you could control these things, there's no way in the world he would ever make me sick on purpose. Anyways, back to the lesson. As you can see, what I did is that I made two layers. The first layer is the layer that's the scan and the sketch. I do cropping to get rid of the excess parts that are not needed. And next, what I do is that I do colorize so that it looks light blue. I make that layer transparent, and then I make a second layer, which is the layer I'm on right now, where I actually do the actual inking. I ink. My program is GIMP, and I ink using the pencil tool because it comes out the most hard edged, which is good, especially when I'm coloring. I want the lines to be clean and precise. Also, what I do is I put the line art at size 6, but sometimes I make it bigger or smaller depending on the perspective of the picture. In this case, it's a regular perspective. Like here, I'm going to make a Astra's eyelash closed eye. When I make a closed eye, I normally do level 10 or weight 10, whatever you want to call it, because it's makes it look more like a closed eye. Adding weights to lines either can make them look further away or make that part of the body look a little more pronounced. Same with eyelashes. Eyelashes should look delicate, so I'm making her eyelashes very like a level 4. Astra has very long eyelashes, lucky girl. But hey, that's the way I wanted to design her. I wanted her to be beautiful and cute. That's the way I do her. And now it's time to finish up her eyebrows here. She's doing a wink here, so. And Astra likes to wear makeup. Such a lady. Let's go for like a pinkish red. Yeah, that's cute. To me, designing a character is like a work of art within itself, and I like my art to put my best foot forward when making art. So when I create a character, especially a main character, I want her to look memorable. So I go for the style. Now here's another technique I do. I want to make Astra's like her eyeshadow to have something like a glittery effect. So I'm going to use the bristles level 2 to make it look that way. Like you see, I'm doing the shading. And now it's time for the middle part. Like, if you don't like the angle, you could just get back to the... Whoops. Thank goodness for Control Z. Yeah, now I'm going to do that. Now it's time to make it shiny. Not very pronounced, is it here? Let's fix that. I don't like that. No. Let's get to go for some smaller bristles. Not still here. Yeah, that's better. And let's make sure the shading to give it that 3D effect. Okay, let's get back to work with the line art. Sometimes in my line art, as you've noticed, for special parts like that, I take a moment to break away and make them a bit more pronounced. Oh wait, I have to unselect that part. Oops. But yeah, and keep in mind, my way of doing things doesn't necessarily have to be your way of doing things. It's like I said, it's my way. You go your own way, like they say. And like I said, this is semi-black and white, so her face tattoos are not going to be their normal colors. Astra's face tattoos are there because it's supposed to show her designation as the High Sorceress of the Luminous Empire. Her dad, her late dad rather, had them too. And so she's got them. Now it's time to do her lipstick. Yeah, I really like designing women because to me it's like designing dolls, and I like making them pretty. I like beauty. Plus, I'm a girly girl myself, so I confess that for me it's also kind of a personal thing that it's like I'm dressing myself when I dress up these female characters. I actually like to collect makeup in real life. Or rather, I used to, now not so much anymore. I mean, collecting makeup can get very expensive, especially when you're trying to feed a family. Plus, too much makeup is not actually good for your skin. Every now and then, you have to give your skin a break. Here, luscious lips. Here we go, and that's it. Okay. Oh, yes, and there's that too. You gotta save frequently because you don't want to do all this work only to lose everything. I can't say how many times I've done that. Too many times. Now here's where we get the selection tool handy. What I do is that I'm making her pearl necklace, and because this is a special picture and I want it to be very accurate and clean, I like to use select tool for shapes like ovals and in this case circles to make the pearl necklace. As I'm doing it, as you've noticed, I do the stroke select, but if I'm overlapping one pearl onto the other, I do clear before stroking. So this way I get a layering effect. These are techniques I learned over the course of time, and I'm always learning new techniques all the time. This is just one of many that turned out to be very, very useful to me. And you're going to see me use a lot of other techniques like pattern techniques, as you saw before with the eyeshadow, and also textures to make something look a little more special and look more like something else. Like, for instance, I use the sponge tool to make the inside of the cake look, cakey and bubbly. Because, if you look at a piece of cake up close and personal, it you can see that the cake has like air bubbles of some kind. And I suppose anybody who's baked a cake knows this stuff all too well. Because as the cake is like baking, it's getting air. Well, it's that same technique with a lot of other things. You texture makes something look a little more accurate and a little more special. Okay, now we got that. Gonna need to use the tool a bit more. Like, this is another thing. Like, the sketch looks like I have the hearts there, but you know what? I kind of want to put circles there. This goes on, you're going to see there's going to be a lot of hearts. So yeah, it's okay if we don't have a few here and there. Now it's time to do her outfit. A lot of this outfit is also like very vintage, as you've noticed. I have a thing for vintage styles from the 70s and 80s a lot. I like those time periods a lot, especially for fashion and home design. It was such a colorful and lively time. I was actually born in the 80s, so the 80s especially is very special to me. I remember how my mom's hairstyles and her clothes used to be, her makeup, and I was always so mesmerized upon looking at it. I remember what my parents' bathroom used to be like. It felt like something truly luxurious. And from what I hear and observed, the look of the 80s and 70s is making a comeback in the fashion scene and in the home design scene, which makes me very happy. Because for too long we've had a bit of a, well, I don't know. How do I put it politely? A rut. Everything was a little too minimalist, a little too clean, a little too simple, a little too white and gray, beige. You know, that lived in charm was being lost. And I didn't like it. Like, I respect people who do, but I don't know. When you come to a house, you want it to feel like a house. But, anyways, I digress. I'm not here to talk to you about home ownership and home design. Let's talk art. Here we go with Astra's hands now. One of the hardest things I always found to draw back in the day were hands. But with a lot of practice, I got it right. I also accepted that I would never do realism quite right. This is something I've made my peace with, so I proudly do my cartoons and make them as unrealistic as I'm comfortable with. I mean, there's nothing wrong with cartoon style. I mean, Adventure Time is very cartoonish. I mean, so cartoonish and so simple and clean that a lot of the characters, their eyes are just pupils, like those little black dots. And sometimes even the shading is minimalist. Though also people do minimalist shading in cartoons because they have to draw the characters again and again and they have deadlines to reach. The same with me. I tend to do less shading in my comics and go for a more simple style and simple look because, I want to finish what I'm doing at one point. I admit that sometimes I've even drawn characters at night and or in darkness to avoid using shading because I wanted to hurry up and finish. And it's not just the deadlines for the comic, it's deadlines in real life. Real life takes priority, people, especially when you're a parent like me. All right, let's see how this is going. Yeah. I also confess that sometimes when I make art, I flip through magazines and pictures on the internet to get ideas for scenery and, of course, clothes. Well, with this, you can kind of tell. Like I said, I looked at a vintage ad to get this inspiration from this. And here, yeah, the belt. Thank you, Vogue. Okay, and here's where I think we're going to put in a little splash of color. I would like the belt to be red. Okay, give it a minute. Give it a save. And here we go. Like I said, I did a selection tool so I don't accidentally draw over the black lines. Another thing I could have done, which I just thought of now, is that I could have drawn the belt first and then just draw the black line art over it. But oh well, hindsight is 2020. Now it's time to oh oh whoops! It's selecting the wrong area. I hate it when that happens. There's always the slip of the finger. That's what happens when you're working with both a mouse and a pen. Well, that's the way art is. You have to use multiple tools in art. It's kind of like how the painters have multiple paint brushes and multiple tools. Sometimes they even use those palette knives to help paint on the canvas. You can't just use one thing. And it's not about using fancy equipment either, it's about using the right equipment. Yeah, let's get this done. And there we go. Time to do the skirt. I'm still debating in my head if I'm going to make this skirt gray or white, but I'm going with gray, dark, deep silver, because it's going to help her stand out. I mean, her skin is going to look very white as it is in the black and white. Yeah, and here's another thing. When you want the boot to have a slightly loose look to it, you have to draw it, well, ink it first. Back in the day, I used to ink by hand on the paper and then scan. Now I ink digitally for obvious reasons. It's a lot cleaner. You have a lot more control. And if you make a mistake, it's easy to fix after. You ink by hand, you're stuck with whatever you get. You make a mistake, it's very hard to fix. There are times when I still like to ink on my own time by hand. I like it traditionally with actual pens, but not as much as I used to. I still sketch by hand. That is something wild horses cannot get me to give up. As you've noticed, like this is a sketch that I did in real life, and then I scanned it. And if this art style looks a little familiar to you, I have to confess, it's because I drew a lot of inspiration from Sailor Moon and Batman the Animated Series to draw my cartoons. I never had formal training, so the cartoons I grew up with were my teachers. That and a hell of a lot of practice and the internet and even actual in real life books. They taught me how to make art. And like I said, I'm always learning new techniques. I'm a bit like Goku, always learning. And that's the way it should be. That's the wise way of doing things. Okay, now here's what we got so far. I think we can do unselect now. Oh, shoot. As you've seen, I made a little mistake here. I forgot to do Astra's lock of hair. And this is actually a good opportunity to show how you correct a mistake. You make another layer over the layer that you are doing. You put what needs to be there. And not just for mistakes, but also, like, let's just say you want to put something that is extra, like a scene with a lot of parts or a lot of people. Layering is going to be your best friend. And then what it is that before merging, like now, you erase the parts that are not needed. Like I'm going back to the original layer. I'm gonna increase the size of this thing a little. And don't feel bad when you make mistakes. Never feel bad. This is the good thing about drawing digitally. It is the easiest thing in the world to correct. The very, very, very easiest thing in the world to correct. And as you can see, even professionals like me, well, amateur professionals, I don't know. No, no, you know what? I am a professional. I make mistakes too. Here. There you see, problem solved. And like I said, the hat is going to be black anyway, so it's okay that I made that little mistake. So now we can merge the two layers. I could do her other eyelashes. Yeah. And now I can do the rest of her hair. And then I can color her. Anyways, as I was saying, Sailor Moon and Batman the Animated Series and Dragon Ball taught me a lot about how to draw characters with very anatomy accurate proportions. Especially Dragon Ball for men, because believe it or not, I always found that drawing men was trickier for me than drawing women. Because the thing is that despite what a lot of people think, men are not as simple to draw, especially when you're trying to draw muscle men. They are surprisingly complex because you have a lot of body parts to consider. You have muscles, they have curves to consider. And also, depending on the way they move, that affects things too. So, yeah, Dragon Ball. Thank you, Akira Toriyama. Rest his soul, one of the greatest authors of our time. I like that. I love his work. He made actually a lot of great work, and not just Dragon Ball, but he did the Dragon Quest animes, and even the art for the Dragon Quest video game itself. He did that. And you know what else he was on board with? He also did the art of whatchamacallit, Chrono Trigger, which was one of, to me, is still one of the best games ever made. It was made back in the day on the NES, on the Super Nintendo. Amazing game. The amount of work they put into that is truly breathtaking. No, I don't want her stockings to be just a plain color like that, and I'm gonna add less weight. Yeah, let's make these red too. Yeah, there we go. Maybe I shouldn't have made these. No, you know what? This still looks wrong to me. I don't like it. Here. This is another thing you can do. Like when you're making art, you can make on the fly decisions to your heart's content. Uh, in this case, if you're not happy with the way the thing is coming out, you can fix that. Here, I want Astra's stockings to be done a little bit differently. No, that's a little too light. Yeah, that's more like it. No, still not right. Yeah, as you can see, it's very, very tricky to get that just right color. No, still not right. But that's the way it is. It's very hard to find that just right. Over. Why is it not? It seems my color tool is not cooperating with me. Okay, let's fix that. Yes, now that's better. Problem solved. There, that's better. That's sleeker. And yeah, that's the. Sorry about that. There, that's better. And I still want her to have like that sexy stocking look, so let's give it some. Here. Now it's going to try to go back to inking. Here. Now, when doing like stockings and like legs and such like that, it's important to remember that they have curves. So you don't want to do it just a straight line. You want to have actual curvatures. And especially for Astro, who's a curvy lady to begin with, you want to have those curves. Yeah, let's fill those gaps a little. Because stockings tend to be very tight. I'm not going to put it, the netting is very detailed. And now we do this. Yeah, just curve it a bit, curve it. And it's okay if it doesn't look perfect. Even in real life, these things never look perfect. As the stocking stretches over your leg, it tends to look a bit strange. There, that's one. Now, here's another technique I've learned. If you want to do a body part like this, you color it first, one color, and then you do color select and make it this color. Whoops, wrong color. But you get the idea. Because it's a lot simpler, you get a much smoother effect. And that's important because especially for like stockings and such like that, they're a little more complex. Yeah, and like I said, you can't just have a straight line. As it goes over the leg, it gets thinner, the effect. You have to have it curved. It's not a straight, stiff line. We're also going to do some shading. Because that too is part of the effect. Okay, let's do a little more than that. There we go. And now we can do the line art of the actual stockings. To do that netted effect. It's so much fun to do the netted effect, I find. And like I said, you do curves. And you do it slowly. Slow and steady wins the race. Or in this case, makes better art. And now you're seeing it why I did the select, because when I do it like this, it makes coloring the whole area a lot easier. Especially when it's supposed to be one continuous part or one continuous line. Because the garter belt here is overlapping everything. Another thing I could have done is that I could have put the garter belt after. But sometimes when you're an artist, you make on-the-fly decisions, which is perfectly fine, perfectly cool. The creative process You gotta trust it. You gotta stand by it, live it, learn it, love it, as they say. Yeah, that's very nice. Mm, I just add a few squaring here. There. But you know what? The shading looks a bit off now because of the side leg, so I'm selecting that part. Can't make it as dark, like just darkening up. Oh wait, wrong tool. Yeah, that happens a lot too. That's the thing when you're switching. The one drawback of digital tools. Digital tools, when you try to use them, it's very easy to mix them up. Here. And so it is. Now it's time to do the rest of the parts. Like I said, the hat is going to be black. What else is going to be black? Is her boots. But you know, I don't want the boots to just be this one big homogenized thing. I want them to stand out. So I'm going to select the area, the inside of the boot, paint it black, and as well as doing that, I'm going to add a bit of gray here. Let's see how that looks. Yes, that's what I want to go for. Because boots shine. And it's okay if it doesn't look perfect. Nothing in this world ever does look perfect. It's like I keep saying, in real life, nothing is a perfect straight line. Hair moves, our bodies get angled. Sometimes, especially when the camera doesn't tend to like you, like me, you tend to look very off at times. And that's okay. It's part of the beauty of natural looks, the beauty of imperfection. Oh, yeah, that's good. Because also I want the boot to look like one is overlapping the other. I don't want it to look like her feet are stuck together. And yeah. Now we smooth it out with the black. Yeah. And to think that people used to do this by hand with paint on cells. You know, cells are those plastic sheets of paper. Pretty cool. But yeah, I am grateful for this technological progress. I want the garter belt to be black too. And yes, I did mean to do this. Because then you get that nice smooth black color. Nice smooth shine. Gives it that mixed 3D effect. Now the big question here. Like I said, I'm going to make her dress silver. Same with... Oh, I just realized I missed a spot. Oops. Easily fixed. Like I said, it's very normal to make a few mistakes when you're making art. Never feel bad that you make them. Oops. There. Now she looks like she's got gloves on. That's what I wanted. That's another good thing about making semi-black and white. You can reuse a lot of the same color for everything. Yeah, to get shading right, I had to learn to do it online. And it's not as easy as it looks. Especially when you're doing it. I like to do side shading, it's my trademark. Now that's too dark. Uh, I hate it when my computer doesn't cooperate with me. Anyways, never mind my naughty computer. As I was saying, it's something I learned to do online. There are a lot of websites online that can teach you how to shade properly. And I learned that, especially when it comes to color, it's not simply you just make everything black. That looks a little unnatural, though I used to make the mistake of doing that. And also, as you can see, you have to move with the curvatures. Looking at things in real life helps a lot because you have to learn to make the colors natural. And you can use the other paint tool to like fix it up. In this case, I'm using that. I don't know what the name of it is. It's a brush that looks kind of like a little spark, and it can look progressively, how to put it, fluffier according to what you want. In my case, I want to make it look like this. Now to add shading for fingers, it's a fun job because to get fingers right in shading, what you do is that you work your way up. You start off with the finger that's furthest to the dark side, solid, and then you put a little less shading every time to give it that realistic effect that it's coming into the light. Asher's boobs are big, but they're not that big. No joke there. Yep. And yeah, that's what we got. That's a little too much. That's okay. Easily fixed. And like I said, back in the day they used to do this by hand with cell shading, so it was tricky. If you think that was tricky, but still, they managed to pull it off, and they made some pretty great stuff. Just look at the feats of Disney and Warner Brothers. Some of the things they were able to do was outright wild. I wonder if anybody would ever have the patience to do that. Well, what am I saying? Of course we would. At one time, I thought I was going to be doing it like that. And I was perfectly cool with it. It's what I wanted. And it's still one of my life goals to turn my work into cartoons. But anyways, right now, trying to get my work out there in comic format. There we go. Now it's time to hips don't lie. Not much to correct here. Maybe something a bit here. There. All right, that's done. Now it's time to do the accessories. The pearls I'm gonna make in white, but because they're pearls. But here's the thing: I don't want them to just be like shading them can be a bit tricky. So to get shading on pearls right, especially for white areas, what I like to do to really get the shading right is that I take. You're gonna see in a second. It's an old technique I learned, and it was very useful. First, you color those areas in gray, like the white areas, and then you make them white or a little bit of a lighter gray. I find that that helped a lot with shading white areas, especially like little small areas like that. Sometimes I still do it the other way of making it like that, but in this case, this is what I do. Like you see, look at that. You see, now the pearls actually look like pearls. And as you get to the dark side, you use a little bit less shading. And, well, we don't need to shade that one at all. And for little parts like this, we use that. Or no, like this. Because it's a drop earring, it's not like other parts of the body. For this one, I'm going to add a bit more light. Maybe I would have been better off painting it white and then putting the gray in, the shading. Oh well, it doesn't matter. I think it's turning out really, really beautiful. Okay, now the feather. Now, I want the feather to appear a bit more fluffy and a bit more. Whoops. First color that in white, and then we add the gray. Really loving this effect. But I'm not just leaving the feather at that. I wanted to have some personality. So let's reduce the size of the pen a little, and here's where I make it look even more like a feather. Yep, as you can see, I do this. Because feathers are textured. They're not one continuous line. I do a similar thing for hair, for special pics, because I want the picture to look special. I want it to look cool. In this case, it's not necessary because Astra's a blonde, and it's not really going to show because when you do her in black and white, she tends to look like she has white hair. So it's really not necessary to do that. But for stuff like feathers, where the lines, each fiber is visible, I like to do little things like that to make it look a little more special. There we go. And these feathers I want to keep solid. Same with the strap, with the exception of making it just a little more special. Now, like I said, you curve it along because although it's not a straight line, red leather. Do a similar thing with the belt. And do it like this. Maybe a little here like that. Make it nice and beautiful. And belts are a bit different, so you gotta make them a bit more smooth. And of course there's the shading to consider. What am I doing? I should just do it like this. There. Now up next is the rest of the black jewelry. And the black stuff is a very similar thing. All you have to do is color select and pick how much you want it to be, how deep you want it to be, and you make it shiny. And now I add some black to make it look like that, to make it look more like it's curved and everything. There. Now it's the rest of the white parts. And in Astra's case, she has an awful lot of white parts, so first I'm going to paint this. You see? Because like I said, she's a blonde, and usually when blondes are drawn in black and white, they have white hair. Can't miss that little spot here. Oh dear, I fear that she looks a little bit like a mime or a harlequin. Not that those are bad things, like I'm a huge fan of Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn, you know, from Batman. She's come a long way, you know. But anyways, yeah. This is always safe because you never know when something might happen. GIMP has crashed on me before. And I've wound up losing a lot of work. I'm not ashamed to say that I even cried from losing work. I mean, I think you'd cry too if you work so hard on something. Okay, now that we've done that, and I don't want it to be as dark as the shading as the jewelry, so let's make it just slightly less dark. Whoops. Yeah. Absent-minded professor here. Oops. There we go. Because you see, like, my trademark is, like I said before, is that I usually make the shading on the left side of the character or the picture. In this case, the character. In fact, my first comic, which is an adaptation of the Jekyll and Hyde story, it was semi-black and white. The colors that stood out were the pastel colors. It was also back in the day. I still shaded. I didn't have shading quite under control yet, and I was also not using. I was not making good use of the computer in terms of inking yet. In fact, I used to be stubborn about being not inking. I look back on it now and say, why didn't I just do this before? But you know what? I'm not ashamed of the learning process. Learning is how you get things right. Sometimes you have to get it wrong to get it right. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Oh, it seems I missed a spot. There. To get the hat technique right. Because you know it's a hat. Hats provide a lot of shade. That's why we wear hats, especially in summer, because they provide shade. Astro has a very small chin. She's very ladylike. Yeah, as you can tell, I've been doing this for a while. And yeah, the background is actually going to be a lot easier to do. You know what? Let's just do it like that. Oops. Yeah, that looks more right. Because you know, the shading from the hat combined with the shading of everything else, it's going to be pretty dark over there. And don't worry about the eye here. Like, really, what does it matter if it's not perfect? It's like that cartoon skit that my son loves to watch. It is not perfect. At one point, you just have to let go of the imperfection and just, you know, enjoy it. Make it part of the charm. Whoops. I have to unselect. Oops. I forget to do that often, as you've noticed. And I have not forgotten the hearts. It's just that the hearts, I have something special in store for them. You're going to see later in a bit. There's a little spot between her boobs. Now look, when it comes to shading, that's just it. I admit that when I was learning to shade properly, sometimes feel a bit shy because I had to do things like that. But you know, it's nothing shy, it's not perverse, you're just trying to do the drawing right. And there we go. Oh, and before I get to, it's time to show my big secret of how I draw eyes. What I do is that I make a new layer, let's call it eyes, and it's behind the base layer. Well, like I said, because Astra is her eyes are gold, so in black and white, they come out silver. So I use the ellipse select color. No, that's not dark enough. Because Astra, she's the champion of light, and that affects her coloring a little. In this case, it makes her eyes gold, but like I said, in black and white, they're silver. Like I do the ellipse select to create the pupil. And I go for a lighter color. First I do this. And finally I do, whoops, I do this. No, I don't like that. I did a little goof. And that's okay. It's okay to goof. There, that's better. That's why we have Control Z. Okay, and now we merge down. Merging makes it a lot easier. Rename the main layer. Here we go. And now we do the inside of the eye too. Because even eyes have a slight shading. If you see cartoons, they have that. And there, that's how I do eyes. And now it's time to do the hearts, which is also a great opportunity. Yet again, I'm going to make another layer for shading. I'm going to literally call it shading, and you're going to see why. Because you see, the hearts are going to be gems. And I have a special tool that I learned to do on my own time of how to do a gem effect. Like, let's make these hearts a little bit of a more pinkish red. Make them really pretty. First I do the base color. And here's the fun part. What I do is that I take the star brush. Is it the right size? Oh, yes, that's perfect. Like you see it here. And what I do is that I make it a bit brighter. Oh, shoot, I hate it when it does that. Come on, be the right color, damn you. Here. And what I do is that I use the airbrush and... No, that's a bit too much. Yeah, and as you see, it looks a bit like crystal now. And if it's too dark, I layer it a little so that it looks really crystallized. Like, look, you see? Now it looks more like a crystal. And now the shading layer. I go back to my usual brushes. And I make this layer a bit transparent so that I don't lose the crystal effect. I want it to look beautiful after all. You can also use a square brush if you want, but I prefer to use the no, it's still not clear enough. That's better. What I do is that I do this and I use the eraser to erase some of that which we don't want. And it is a crystal, so it has to look shiny. So let's add some shine. Oh, wait. Well, that's funny. I wonder why it's not as shiny, this one. Oh, well. What does it matter? And now we do the same thing with this heart on the correct layer. Oh, you gotta laugh at yourself. It's always important to laugh at yourself. Wait. You can also use the square brush if you want to make it a little more crystal to make it like a different kind of crystal effect. But I don't like doing it like that. I like doing it like this. Use this. There. That, and I also like that smoky effect it gives. And now the picture is almost done. But as you notice, we still have to do the background. So let's get to it. As you might have guessed, I make a new layer called floor first. I like doing the floor first because, I like keeping everything grounded. And we're going to stay with the theme of pinks and reds. I like the background to be colorful. I'm using the selection tool right now. What's it called? The path tool, actually, sorry. Pardon me. I make paths because I also want to curve this. I do selection from path. And while there's that, let's do the gradient tool. No, wrong way. Yeah, this is something I learned from watching the videos of Bob Ross. When it comes to perspective, the background, things that are supposed to be far, should look dark, and as you come closer, they get lighter and lighter, which is a really cool thing. Now it's time to do the hearts. And you're probably going to guess by now that they're not going to look exactly like this. And that's just as well, because you're going to see what I'm going to do. Well, first I have to draw my first heart. First, what I do is that I ink a heart. Let's get this one done first. In fact, I'm going to do shading here again. And you're going to see why. There's a method to every last bit of this madness. Okay, first, I have to draw the heart correctly. I don't like that. Okay, that's something I like better. Or not even. You know what? I'm just going to go with this. What I do is that I do selection, paste, give it a minute to load, because I want it to look symmetrical, you see? Okay, there we go. I do the flip tool. Let's do a flip. Whoops. Grab the wrong layer. And there we go. That's much better. Now it looks symmetrical. It's not perfect, but like I said, it's not about perfection. Let's do it like this. And here's where the really fun part comes in. We do the gradient tool again. And we make the heart have this gradient effect that I've always loved in my hearts. No pun intended. Should I do it like this or like that? You know what? I like it like this better. Okay. And now we go to the next layer. And we take the heart, and I want it to have like a bit of a pretty flowery effect. So, well, not flowery, a crystal effect. Like I said, you take the star tool again, the star brush. I want it to be a bit lighter than that. No, that's a bit too big, the brush. Here, how about that? Let's make it a bit clearer. Hmm. You know what? I don't like it like this. It doesn't look right. It does not look right at all. Let's go back to making it like this. Like it looks wrong. It looks off. And instead of using the star brush, I'm going to use the pixel. Like as you can see, it's a square, so that helps in making it look, how can I put it, crystally. It's a technique I learned. Okay, the brush needs to be bigger. And I find it helps if you do it like that. Do it like that. And now we're going to do the gradient over it. I think that's going to be a much better effect. And how can I make it look really good? With the gradient tool, instead of making it, we're going to make it dark, foreground to transparent, as they call it. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, baby. And now we're going to merge while it's still selected. And because, as you can see, making one heart can take a lot of time, I use a bit of a cheat code. I copy, paste, and I'm just going to take the same heart and put it everywhere. And sometimes I'm going to resize it to make it bigger or smaller. Just give it a minute to load. This is where I'm going to also get my shear tool ready when necessary. First, I'm going to select none. Here, as you see, there, there, there. Oh, it seems somebody's messaging me. Yeah. You can wait. There, there, there. And now it's time to resize. Oh wait, wrong tool. That's not the scale tool we want to make the heart bigger. And like I said, you do a copy. Here's something like I said, I'm kind of winging it as I'm doing this, and that's okay. It's okay to wing a little. And you want to layer accordingly. So why don't we merge some of this a bit? Yeah, but as you see, this is what I do to make it look pretty. I hope you're enjoying this. Like this is something I learned to do over a lot of practice, a lot of trial and error. And honestly, it helped me a lot. And even now, it's not it's still a learning process for me, as you've seen. I'm trying to get this to be done right. I'm trying to hone in on what I've learned, make it even better. It's like the eternal student. Just merge those layers. Because unfortunately, sometimes when I copy, it creates a new layer. Don't ask me why. Take it up with the computer. Now, when I copy and paste something the first time, I don't know why, but it takes a moment to load it up. Don't ask me why. Okay, I don't want it to be that big. Yeah, just doing this. Wait, I goofed. There, I wanted to cover it up. I'm just making like a layer of hearts. I guess you could say the hearts are kind of acting as bubbles too, which is fun. Whoops. You gotta watch out for that. Maybe I should make this transparent for now. Yeah, this is taking some time, but it's gonna be very worth it, trust me. Now we make the heart just a little bit smaller now. And here's where we don't have to cover every inch anymore. Relaxing. Wait, no, wrong. There we go. Let's put that there. There. Whoops. I hate it when the mouse does that. Oh well. There. And yeah. And now we do the same thing on the other side. Yeah. I think we could put Astra back here. Yeah, we're gonna fix where she's positioned too because it looks like she could be a little bit. Yeah, let's. Uh oh. Yeah, this thing can be a bit slow. Yeah. Let's move her over a bit more. And now for the final part of the background. We're going to, I want it to be a bit more pink. So we're going to start with a pink base. And again, we're going to use the gradient tool, make the shape kind of like a cone. And we're going to do the flare erase. But before we do that, we're going to make it so that it's a nice, give it a minute. There it is. It's doing its thing. You have to let your art do its thing sometimes because it's all part of the process. You got to be patient with art because good art takes time. And yeah, that's pretty much the final part, except for one final step that I'm going to do. And I think it came out pretty good. I'm very happy with it. I love Astra's look. I love the color palette. It's clean. It's cute. It's fashionable. But you know what? I'm not sure if I like that cone shape. It's not really quite what I'm going for. So as soon as it's done doing its thing, I'm gonna fix it up a bit. Yeah, the gradient, that's the one thing about GIMP. It's a bit of a pain in the petunia. It can take a bit of time for things to get ready. And you know what? Honestly, I don't even think we need the gradient really. It's just kind of there. It's not really necessary. Well, now it looks like I'm stuck with it. Oops. Well, anyways, how are things going anyway? Well, it seems we're well, Moonfixer. As you can see, things are going quite well. I'm very happy with the way the picture is coming out, and I hope you agree with me that it came out really well. Are you liking it so far? Oh, yes, and there it goes. The grading is pretty much done. I don't like that cone shape. Let's do linear instead. Oh no. Let's do linear instead. Linear is prettier. Instead of that dark thing, let's do a bright pink. Yeah, that's better. And let's make the layer a little more transparent with the gradient. Yeah, that's what I'm going for. And now all that's left is to sign, seal, and deliver, as they say. Let me just get my tool ready. I want my signature to stand out. I'm very proud of my work, and I take a lot of pride in getting it seen. So now, yeah, let's just put the signature right here. And we're done. Thanks again for joining me. And I hope you enjoyed this art lesson and this art stream just as much as I had making it. Sorry again for the goofs. Like I'm saying, I'm very new to making videos, so I'm going to make a lot of mistakes in the beginning. And hopefully, every time I do this, it's going to get better and better. If you like my art, please check out my link tree to read my comics and also check out my art and my web comics. If you want to support me, you can give me a coffee on my Ko-fi, or you could even become a patron of mine on my Ko-fi by becoming a member, or buy my commissions or my stuff. I also have my book Cupcake War Machine available in paperback and in Kindle format in Amazon. Like I keep saying, follow the links and you will get everything you want. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to message me on my social medias. You have yourselves a great day, and this is MK Wizard signing off. Goodbye.